The story kicks off with a mission to catch a group of people trying to sneak across the US-Mexico border illegally. The operation is a joint effort between the CIA and some hardcore special forces. In the middle of the chaos, one guy makes a run for it, heading toward a ravine. Once he gets there, he pulls a bomb out of his bag, mutters a quick prayer, and sets it off. The explosion not only kills him, but also takes the lives of 4 security officers. The US government doesn't waste any time and sends in the special forces to figure out what the heck just happened. Meanwhile, in Kansas City, a bunch of shady characters walks into a grocery store. Before anyone knows it, there's a series of explosions just like the one at the border. And just like the guy at the ravine, these attackers also prayed before setting off the bombs. The city is left in shock, and with a string of terrifying events unfolding, the US Secretary of Defense, James Riley, steps up to address the nation. In his speech, he gets real serious, vowing to hunt down the terrorists and put an end to this madness. Now enters Matt Graver, a tough-as-nail CIA operative known for playing by his own rules. At the moment, Matt is leading a mission in the Gulf of Somalia, targeting a criminal group holed up in a remote area. The next day, Matt interrogates the leader of the group, a guy named Bashir. At first, Bashir denies any involvement in the Kansas City bombings, which were reportedly carried out by Yemenis. But Matt's no fool. He figures out that Bashir had a hand in helping the terrorists get to Mexico. When Matt pushes for more answers, specifically about who's bankrolling all this, Bashir keeps his mouth shut. Matt doesn't take kindly to silence, so he brings in Bashir's brother to turn up the heat. Eventually, Bashir cracks and spills the beans. He admits there's a connection between the terrorists and a powerful Mexican cartel boss named Carlos Reyes, who runs the criminal scene south of the border. While all this is going on, we're introduced to Miguel, a troubled teenager living near the border. Miguel's not exactly a model student. He skips school all the time and spends his days hanging out with his cousin Hector. One day, Hector invites Miguel to join the cartel he works for, tempting him with the promise of easy money and a sense of belonging. Miguel, seeing no better option, decides to take the plunge. Back in the States, Matt Graver wastes no time. He meets up with Secretary James Riley and Cynthia Fords, a key player from the ministry. During their discussion, Matt lays out his thoughts. The Mexican drug cartels are the real terrorists here. They're working with other extremist groups to smuggle drugs, weapons, and people into the US, causing chaos. To tackle this, Matt proposes a bold and risky plan. Start a war between 2 of the biggest cartels in Mexico, the Matamoros cartel and Carlos Reyes' crew. The plan hinges on one crazy idea: kidnapping Carlos's youngest daughter, Isabelle. Everyone in the room is stunned. It's a dangerous move, and they all know it. But after weighing the risks, James gives Matt the green light. With one condition: no American forces can be directly involved. That means Matt needs to hire mercenaries for the job. Matt contacts a guy named Troy to recruit the necessary muscle and gather weapons, with all expenses covered by the ministry. Then, Matt flies to Bogota to meet his old ally, Alejandro, a legendary hitman with a reputation for being the most ruthless in Latin America. Matt tells Alejandro that their target is Carlos Reyes, and Alejandro doesn't hesitate to join. For him, it's personal. Carlos was responsible for the massacre of Alejandro's family, and this mission offers a chance for revenge. To stir up trouble between the cartels, Alejandro comes up with a plan to kill the lawyer representing the Matamoros cartel. But he doesn't just want the guy dead, he wants to send a message. Before pulling the trigger, Alejandro makes the lawyer put on glasses so he can see exactly who's about to end him. The brutal assassination grabs headlines, distracting everyone while Matt and his team move forward with their plan to kidnap Isabelle. Isabelle, on the other hand, is completely oblivious to the storm brewing around her. At school, she's known for being a troublemaker, constantly getting into arguments with her classmates. Her teachers are at their wits' end, but nobody dares expel her because of her father's influence. As the school day ends, Isabelle heads out, escorted by her security team. She has no idea what's about to happen. Matt's team jams all communication signals in the area and blocks Isabelle's car. In a matter of seconds, they grab her, cover her head to hide her identity, and take off. The operation is swift and precise, leaving Isabelle's bodyguards completely in the dark. Alejandro takes over from here, pretending to be a member of the Matamoros cartel to manipulate one of Isabelle's bodyguards. At the same time, Matt monitors Carlos Reyes's home, orchestrating a fake shooting incident nearby and pinning the blame on Carlos's men. The chaos creates the perfect cover for Matt's next move, tracking Carlos's exact location. While Matt handles the logistics, Alejandro keeps Isabelle in a secure spot. She's still clueless about Alejandro's true identity, believing he's an American cop. To maintain the act, Alejandro works with the local police, convincing Isabelle that she was kidnapped by the Matamoros cartel. He even goes through the motions of standard police procedures, all to keep the ruse alive until Matt gives him the go-ahead for the next step. Before moving forward, Matt and Alejandro bring in their trusted ally, Rafael, to help navigate the tricky situation ahead. The plan is to drop Isabelle off near the Matamoros cartel's territory, hoping to spark a violent feud between the two cartels. Rafael is all in and offers his full support. As Matt is about to leave after the meeting, he runs into Miguel in a parking lot. The interaction is tense, and Alejandro immediately picks up on it. Miguel recognizes the car as belonging to someone tied to American authorities, and there's an unspoken understanding between him and Alejandro. Later that evening, Miguel and Hector cross into Mexico to meet Gallo, a high-ranking member of the Matamoros cartel. Hector helps Miguel get initiated into the cartel, sealing his fate. Meanwhile, preparations are underway to move Isabelle closer to Matamoros territory. Alejandro, always meticulous, ensures Isabelle is wearing a bulletproof vest for her safety during the transfer. At first, things seem to go according to plan, with Rafael's help keeping rival gangs off their backs. But Isabelle's behavior starts to make Matt uneasy, and when their route suddenly shifts onto rough, isolated dirt roads, the tension skyrockets. Out of nowhere, the group gets ambushed by what looks like federal police, but it quickly becomes clear they're working for Carlos Reyes. A wild firefight breaks out, forcing Matt and Alejandro to fight tooth and nail. Amidst the chaos, Isabelle spots a chance to make a run for it. Matt's team, though outnumbered, manages to turn the tables and take down the attackers, thanks to some sharp strategy. Once the dust settles, it's obvious these weren't real police, but Reyes' men in disguise. Matt doesn't hesitate and eliminates the threat. Meanwhile, Alejandro is laser-focused on finding Isabelle, and Matt hands him a tracking chip to make the job easier. While Alejandro searches, Matt's team faces another obstacle, a Mexican police car blocking their way. Matt, clearly done with the delays, uses force to get through and ensures his team crosses back into the U.S. Meanwhile, Isabelle, trying to get help from a passerby, accidentally runs into one of her father's men. Not wanting to go back, she resists, and Alejandro swoops in to save her, taking out the subordinate and bringing Isabelle to safety. As all of this unfolds, Isabelle starts to piece together Alejandro's true role in her situation. The focus then shifts to a military base, where Matt and Cynthia get into a heated argument, escalating the drama. The operation gets called off suddenly due to public outrage over the killing of a Mexican policeman. Matt, furious with the ministry's decision, vents his frustration. Alejandro, however, stays behind in Mexico with Isabelle. To navigate this tricky situation, they find help from a kind, deaf local named Angel and communicate using sign language. Back in the U.S., the ministry scrambles to handle the fallout. Matt, Cynthia, and Steve Forsing hold an emergency meeting where they decide to detain Isabelle as a witness to the shooting. Cynthia orders Matt's team to track Isabelle using the device. But Matt hesitates, torn between his loyalty to Alejandro and the ministry's orders. He knows that harming Isabelle would derail Alejandro's quest for justice. While all this is going on, Isabelle enjoys a warm meal cooked by Angel and his wife. Meanwhile, Matt contacts Alejandro, pressuring him to kill Isabelle. Alejandro refuses, determined to stay focused on his goal of taking down Carlos Reyes. He's not about to let anyone derail his mission. At the same time, the Matamoros cartel resumes their smuggling operations, assigning Miguel his first job as a guide. Leading a group of immigrants through tough terrain, Miguel navigates bushes and rivers until they reach a waiting freight truck. It's his first real taste of cartel life. Back with Alejandro, he's busy preparing weapons for his mission to cross the border and confront Carlos Reyes. During this time, Isabelle opens up to Alejandro, admitting she knows about her father's role in Alejandro's family's massacre. Instead of letting it get to her, she offers to help. She even cuts her hair and adopts a fake identity, calling herself Karina. Together, Alejandro and Isabelle head for the border. Alejandro activates the tracking chip hidden in Isabelle's shoe, hoping it will draw Matt's team to them when the time is right. Their journey takes them to a human trafficking post controlled by the Matamoros cartel, setting the stage for an intense confrontation. Meanwhile, Matt's team preps to reach Alejandro via helicopter to avoid detection by Mexican authorities. As this unfolds, Hector shows up demanding payment from Alejandro, who hands over $1,000. Things seem to be running smoothly until Miguel recognizes Alejandro from a previous encounter. Panicked, Miguel reports to Hector, claiming Alejandro is a cop. Playing along, Hector pretends to help Alejandro, but instead leads him into a trap. At an isolated spot, Hector and his crew turn on Alejandro, stealing his weapons and dragging Isabelle off the bus. Even in this dire situation, Alejandro keeps his cool and tries to negotiate with Gallo, a Matamoros cartel leader. He claims to be working for Carlos Reyes and insists that returning Isabelle safely is in everyone's best interest. Alejandro warns that failing this mission could spark a bloody cartel war, but Gallo isn't buying it. Instead, he orders one of his men, Jose, to kill Alejandro. In a surprising twist, Gallo changes his mind at the last second and kills Jose instead. He then hands the gun to Miguel, pressuring him to finish the job. Miguel, under intense pressure, shoots Alejandro. Thinking the job is done, Gallo and his crew leave Alejandro for dead in the desert. What they don't know is that Miguel's shot only grazed Alejandro's cheek. Watching everything unfold through the tracking device, Matt is devastated but determined to act. Fueled by anger, Matt orders his team to go after Gallo and his men. As Miguel heads back to the cartel headquarters, guilt starts eating away at him. To his shock, Alejandro, though injured and bleeding, is still alive. Summoning all his strength, Alejandro manages to free himself and commandeers Gallo's car, disposing of the body inside. On the way, he faces yet another attack from Matamoros cartel members but quickly takes them out with a grenade. Not long after, Matt's helicopter closes in on Gallo's group. His team launches a full-on assault, wiping out the cartel members. Defying Cynthia's orders, Matt spares Isabelle and instead places her in witness protection, signaling a major shift in his priorities. As the sun beats down, Alejandro, weak from blood loss, gathers his strength to continue his mission. He takes control of Gallo's car and drives off, prepared for whatever comes next. Meanwhile, a year passes and Miguel is spotted working at a food stall. In a surprising twist, Alejandro shows up, aware of Miguel's desire to become a hitman. Recognizing his potential, Alejandro decides to mentor him, setting the stage for a deadly partnership.